I sat at my corner desk, the late afternoon sun slanting across the polished wood, warming my coffee cup in the most ordinary, comforting way. The office was silent except for the soft hum of my computer, and for a moment, I let myself pretend that the past was just that, the past. My silk blouse brushed against my skin as I reached for my phone, which vibrated insistently. A number I didn't recognize flashed on the screen. Hello. My voice was calm, controlled. The voice on the other end sent a shiver down my spine. Ms. Mitchell, this is your husband's lawyer about the lawsuit. The world seemed to tilt for a second. My heart thudded in a way that reminded me of a teen girl with nothing but a backpack and a secret life ahead of her. 21 years. 2 decades and more. I'd buried every memory of that night. I was thrown out, humiliated, and told I wasn't welcome. And now it had resurfaced, demanding attention. I leaned back, feeling the leather chair mold to me. Pride, anger, and disbelief churned together. The office around me, the art on the walls, the carefully curated furniture, the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, was a fortress of my making. They didn't know it yet, but I had built a life from ashes. And now, after 21 years, they wanted a piece of what I'd earned. My fingers hovered over the phone. I could feel the familiar twinge of steel and softness, the calm yet firm Hannah Mitchell the world had come to know, ready to face what was coming. I remember the smell of my childhood bedroom, faintly of lavender and old books, as if it had been waiting for me to make a mistake I couldn't undo. I was 16, almost 17, and my world had been shattered by the tiny heartbeat growing inside me. When I told Jason, my husband, in name only, really just the boy I thought I loved, his face had gone pale. The words that followed still echoed in my mind. You can't stay here. You're on your own now. This is your problem, Hannah. My mother's disappointment was a heavier weight. Her hands shook as she folded my clothes into a bag, her eyes darting between me and my father, who didn't even look up. There was no warmth, no comfort, only the sting of rejection, of being cast aside for daring to live my truth. I remember clutching the small silver locket my grandmother had given me that summer. Whenever you feel lost, Hannah, she had whispered, this will remind you that strength is already inside you. No one can take that away. The locket was tiny, unassuming, but heavy with meaning, a talisman I didn't fully understand then. The night I left, the hallway felt endless. My backpack pressed against my shoulders, the leather strap digging into my skin, and yet every step was a declaration. I was not broken. The streets were dark, the world seemed larger than ever, and I had nothing but a part-time job waiting for me and a secret I couldn't share with anyone. I cried in the subway station alone, feeling the judgment of strangers like whispers against my skin. But even as my tears fell, a seed of defiance was planted. I told myself, I will survive. I will not be defined by shame or by anyone else's rules. In that moment, the locket pressed against my chest, a small but steadfast reminder. It whispered of possibility, of resilience, and of a future I would carve for myself with my own hands. And somewhere deep down, I knew that leaving, though terrifying, was the first step toward freedom. For the first time, I walked into the night not as a scared girl, but as a young woman determined to claim a life that no one could take from me. The first months after leaving were the hardest. I slept in a tiny studio apartment, the walls paper-thin, the radiator clanking at night like it was keeping secrets of its own. I worked odd jobs, waiting tables, tutoring, anything that would keep food on the table and the lights on. My days were long, my hands often raw from labor, but I carried the locket everywhere, a quiet reminder of the strength I had been gifted. It was during one of those tutoring sessions that I met Claire Reynolds, a seasoned editor at a local publishing firm. She saw something in me I hadn't yet recognized, not just intelligence, but a spark of determination that refused to be extinguished. Hannah, she said one afternoon as we pored over manuscripts, you have a voice people need to hear. Don't let anyone make you small. Her words were a compass. With Claire's mentorship, I began writing articles, slowly building a portfolio, while still working nights to pay rent. Each word, I typed felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. The first time an article was published under my byline, I cried in the dim light of my apartment, clutching the locket and thinking, I'm not invisible. I exist. I matter. The journey wasn't linear. I faced endless rejections, people telling me I wasn't ready, that my life circumstances made me unreliable, that success wasn't for someone like me. I learned to sit with self-doubt, to let it teach me rather than paralyze me. I stayed up late, typing by the light of a desk lamp, learning marketing strategies, pitching clients, taking courses online, slowly building a life that was mine. My first big client came unexpectedly, a small but influential publishing house willing to take a chance on my ideas. I remember signing that first contract, my hands shaking not with fear, but with exhilaration. I had done it. I had carved a space for myself in a world that had tried to shut me out. I learned the power of secrecy. 2. I didn't brag, didn't post photos of milestones or wealth, because the last thing I wanted was judgment or interference from the family who had abandoned me. My victories were my own, celebrated quietly, shared only with Claire and a few trusted friends who understood what it meant to fight for a life on your own terms. Within a few years, I had a small team working under me, my name recognized in circles I had once thought unreachable. I moved into a larger apartment, furnished not with extravagance, but with elegance that reflected who I had become, thoughtful, confident, self-made. Every night, I touched the silver locket that had guided me, feeling the weight of 21 years of determination, pain, and triumph pressing into my palm. I had grown from a scared teenage girl into a woman who could hold her own. The world might have thought they had seen the last of Hannah Mitchell, the girl who had been kicked out at 16, but the truth was, I had only just begun. And no one, not Jason, not my parents, would ever underestimate me again. The knock at the door was deliberate, almost theatrical. I glanced up from my laptop, the late afternoon sun catching the edges of the framed artwork on my office walls. The polished wood, the minimalist desk, the subtle sheen of bronze accents. Every detail had been carefully curated over the years to reflect a life I had built from nothing. My heart didn't race. I had prepared for this moment for decades. When I opened the door, I froze for only a heartbeat. There stood my mother and father, looking exactly as they had 21 years ago, expectant, anxious, unsure of how to confront the daughter they had cast out. And Jason. His face had changed, yes, but those same dismissive eyes lingered. They didn't expect to see me like this. I invited them in. My office smelled faintly of coffee and vanilla candles, a subtle warmth that contrasted with the cold tension in the air. I gestured for them to sit, and they hesitated, their eyes darting across the room. The carefully stacked books, the sleek awards glinting in sunlight, the panoramic view of the city skyline beyond the windows. I let the silence stretch. Let them absorb it all. The recognition came slowly. I wasn't the scared, pregnant teenager they had discarded. I was calm, collected, a force they had never anticipated. Finally, I spoke. My voice was steady, unshakable. 21 years ago, I left home with nothing but a backpack and this locket, I said, holding the silver charm for them to see. You thought that would be enough to break me. But I built my life on it, on the strength it reminded me I already had. Their faces tightened. Guilt, disbelief, and shame flickered in a way that was almost satisfying. I continued. I own a successful publishing firm now. I employ dozens of people, mentor young writers, and have a net worth that I never imagined at 16. Every contract, every award, every achievement is a testament to the life I refuse to let you define for me. Jason opened his mouth, probably to say something, but I cut him off with a single, pointed look. No interruptions. I succeeded while you doubted me, while you tried to erase me, I said. And yet here you are, expecting to challenge me legally, expecting me to bend. My smile was thin but firm. Well, I'm still standing. And I always will be. My parents' hands fidgeted. Jason's jaw tightened. They had imagined me struggling, surviving on handouts or pity. They had expected a timid, broken girl who might quietly apologize for the embarrassment I had caused. What they didn't expect was this: a woman who had flourished in silence, whose success was her own shield. I gestured toward the art and furniture again. This isn't just decoration. Every piece here represents work, strategy, and vision. I am not the same Hannah you left behind. I am stronger, wiser, and entirely untouchable in ways you can't even comprehend. The silence returned, heavier now. They were listening,
Seeing.
feeling the weight of the years, the consequences of their choices. I didn't gloat. I didn't rage. I simply presented the truth, and that truth was enough to shift the entire room. For the first time, they realized that Hannah Mitchell, the girl they had tried to destroy, had not only survived but thrived. And now, she was fully in control. I took a deep breath, letting the silence stretch a moment longer. They had absorbed the truth of who I had become. Now, it was time to lay down the rules, not out of cruelty, but to reclaim the dignity that had been denied to me for so long. Jason, I began, my tone calm but firm, if you want any connection with me or any part of my life, you need to take responsibility. You need to acknowledge the choices you made that hurt me. Apologies mean nothing without action. I want to see that you've truly changed, emotionally, not just legally. He shifted in his chair, squirming under the weight of my gaze. For years, he had believed power meant pushing me around. Now, he realized power was not taken. It was earned through respect and accountability. Turning to my parents, I continued, Mom, Dad, I love you in some way, but love isn't enough. You need to recognize the years you abandoned me, the support you withheld, and you need to prove that you can be better, not just for me, but for yourselves. No more judgment. No more assumptions. Your growth must be genuine, not performative. I saw the hesitation, the discomfort, and even the glimmer of understanding. This was not about revenge. This was about breaking cycles that had defined us all. I had spent years learning to protect myself, to rise, to thrive, and now I would not allow toxic patterns to re-enter my life. And as for all of you, I said, my voice softening just slightly, if you truly want a place in my world, here are the conditions: honesty, humility, and a willingness to learn. Dreams that were abandoned must be reclaimed. Resentment must be left at the door. And respect for me, my choices, and my life is non-negotiable. I paused, letting each word settle like stones in water. I could see the impact, shoulders slumping, eyes widening, a dawning realization that this wasn't about punishment. It was about empowerment for all of us, starting with me. The locket rested against my chest under my blouse, its silver surface warm against my skin. I touched it lightly, feeling the steady pulse of resilience it had carried for decades. It reminded me that compassion did not equal weakness, and that setting boundaries was not cruelty. It was strength. Finally, I looked at all three of them, my expression softening yet resolute. I'm giving you a chance, a real chance, to rebuild, to heal, and to grow. But know this: I will not compromise my life or my peace. The control has shifted, and I am the one who decides the terms now. It was the first time in 21 years that I saw them truly reflect, not just on my past, but on their own. And in that reflection, I knew the balance of power had changed. I wasn't angry anymore. I was free, and I held the key. Weeks passed after that day. The atmosphere shifted subtly, but unmistakably. Jason, for the first time, began attending counseling sessions, learning to face the choices he had made. My parents joined a local support group, reconnecting with their own lives and slowly learning to release the guilt they had carried. It wasn't perfect. Growth rarely is, but it was real, tangible, and undeniable. I watched them from a distance at first, cautiously, noting small changes. Mom smiling without tension, Dad asking questions instead of lecturing, Jason admitting mistakes without defensiveness. Each step, however minor, felt monumental. For once, I wasn't the one scrambling to adapt or forgive blindly. I could witness change without sacrificing my own peace. Sitting at my desk one quiet evening, I held the silver locket again. Its cool weight was a reminder of that frightened, determined girl who had left home decades ago with nothing but courage and an unshakable belief in herself. I had survived, yes, but more importantly, I had grown into a woman who could love without fear, who could set boundaries without guilt, and who could transform pain into power. I reflected on the journey, the humiliation, the nights spent wondering if I'd ever be enough, the constant fight to prove myself in a world that had counted me out. And I realized that every scar, every tear, every moment of self-doubt had been a stepping stone to this version of me, strong, confident, and unapologetically alive. Looking out at the city skyline, I smiled. I thought about the advice from my grandmother, the locket pressed to my chest. Strength is already inside you. I had carried that lesson silently for years, and now it was fully mine. Not because anyone had given it to me, but because I had claimed it through my choices, my resilience, and my refusal to surrender. I took a deep breath, savoring the quiet hum of life around me. In this room, in this moment, I was free. Free from judgment, free from shame, free from the ghosts of the past. And I knew that no one could ever take this from me. Because I was Hannah Mitchell, survivor, warrior, creator of her own destiny. And after 21 years, I had proven, finally and completely, that the power to define my life had always been mine. And with a soft, confident exhale, I whispered to myself, almost as if narrating my own story to the world. I am not defined by what they took from me. I am defined by what I built from it.